Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Survivor Becomes a Dungeon. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 36. Trisha's Point of View. Her limbs felt shaky and loose after facing another life-and-death situation so soon after that incident with the skeletons. Thankfully, Little Red seemed more than happy to show her some care and attention, sprawled out on her legs and nuzzling her stomach with comforting purrs. The red cat seemed to radiate a soothing warmth. It was a kind and gentle feeling that grounded her back in the moment. With a heavy sigh, she opened her eyes as she looked up at the shade of the tree supporting her, before looking down at Little Red and smiling as she began gently scratching the space between his ears. "Thank you, Little Red. We probably should head back to the others. We've been out on our own for too long." She lost her smile at the thought and sighed a bit more, not to mention all that work I've got ahead of me. At that, the red cup morelled and reached up, using his soft pads to bat her cheek before stepping off of her and curling his tail, seemingly signaling Trisha to follow him. Trisha watched Little Red curiously, tilting her head before flashing a smile as she pushed up off the tree to get to her feet. "So you don't want to go back yet, huh? Sure, Little Red. Let's go where you want," she said, accepting any excuse to not head back right away. Vidmori Point of View. The sinners have taken to their training quite well, under Dread's guidance. The 7 of them have found their niches within the day of their births. First of the group is Pride, of course. She was made from a human woman who seemed to speak for the group readily, but the others have not found their voices for some reason. Of course, they were just born today, so I shouldn't rush them when they're not ready to speak. As it is, Pride prefers wearing as many stones as she can, just trying to keep up with her mentor Dread, mimicking heavy armor. Her preferred equipment was one-handed warhammer and a shield. After Pride is Greed. Despite their tanned skin, they appear to be ashen-skinned like all the others. He seemed to be a mischievous kind of man, a human that's perhaps in his 20s. He prefers a cloak and dagger style of combat from what I've seen so far, moving on light feet and quick swings and jabs of a small blade, while also taking practice throws with the wooden daggers at the impromptu targets made from his shield. Another of my sins is Envy, a younger-looking elf-man whose body came from one of the acolytes. He's slight and not particularly impressive-looking, but he has a strong potential for magic, as far as I can tell. He prefers using a staff, not wearing armor in particular, and has spent most of his time meditating after some light sparring. I've caught him staring at the others, watching their every movement and seemingly studying their development techniques. I wonder if it's an exaggeration to say his eyes seem to be the greenest out of the others. Next is Gluttony, a dwarven woman who seems to find her style with a pair of hand axes. She wears a moderate amount of stones for her build. She's probably trying to emulate a medium grade of armor, not too light or heavy. Her strikes are heavy with a confident follow-through, her swings aiming high as it seems to anticipate fighting opponents larger than her. On the other end of the room is Lust, an admittedly handsome-looking green-skinned orc that has a well-maintained beard and sleek brown hair which was tied back in a ponytail. He wasn't overly built up regarding his musculature, but found a good balance in using a stone greatsword with the stone plates that would be weighed to a medium armor. Despite not saying much, he smiled the kindest and seemed to get along with all the others. Sitting beside Envy is Sloth. They seem to have moved the least when considering everyone else. There's a sleepy-looking elf woman with a pure black skin and silvery hair. She admittedly is plump for being on par with the other acolytes and knights, but from what I can tell, her build certainly doesn't matter when I consider that she's the first amongst the sinners to develop their mana hearts from simple meditation. Finally, there's Wrath. She seems to be a kind of half-orc with a grey skin and elvish features, if what I'm seeing is correct. Ironically, she appears to be the calmest and most collected of the group, methodically and precisely handling her weapon despite choosing to wield the biggest and heaviest weapon of the group and swings around with a great stone hammer. As for her armor, she has opted for a light amount of stone plates for her training, preferring to move fast and strike hard at the expense of leaving herself open. It's been a few hours since I directly oversaw their training, much to Dread's delight, when he seemingly sensed me. I'd been so distracted that I didn't even notice I had a guest in my core chamber. Trisha's point of view. When she had decided to follow Little Red to slack off on her duties, she didn't expect to be climbing a mountain. However, the little cub seemed to be just so happy to have her tagging along, so she wasn't about to turn back now. Though nearly halfway up, the steep climb suddenly turned into a more manageable array of stairs and zigzagged up the mountainside. She passed by several neatly carved-out cave entrances, but Little Red didn't seem interested enough to stop at any of them until they approached a triangular entryway, where the stairs had ended. "So, Little Red, where do you want to take me?" she asked the cub as he trots inside. Trisha glances back down the way they came before following after him. Before she knew it, a warm green glow had caught her attention. There in the center of the chamber, on a pedestal that was near her chest in height, was a glowing green gem the size of a Troshk melon. "Is that Vidmori? It's his. Beautiful," she says under her breath while gradually approaching the core. Little Red meeps at her cheerfully as he sits on the steps to the pedestal, her hand outstretched to the core, something about the swirling glow inside just beckoning her to touch it. Suddenly, a voice emanates in her head, causing her to jolt in surprise as she pulls away. "Well, thank you very much for that. It's not every day I get a compliment." Trisha can't help but take another step back, smiling sheepishly, while glancing at her hand as if wondering what came over her. She then looked up at Vidmori and smiled a little more. You're welcome?" She could feel joy and kindness emanating from the core, though his voice called from within her again. "Now then, what brings you here? Do you have something to ask of me?" Trisha couldn't help but glance at Little Red, who was happily cleaning one of his paws. She then looked at Vidmori and cleared her throat. "Actually, I do. You see, I'm a blacksmith, and the group has tasked me with making tools required to build up our community. However, with the lack of a forge or even a furnace, I can't exactly make much of anything beyond stone tools. Even then, I have next to no experience making stuff with stone," she explained, seeming more bashful with each passing moment as she rubbed the back of her neck. However, the core just oozed with excitement as it echoed in her head. "A blacksmith, you say? Excellent! You're just what I was hoping for. Do you need tools, a forge, and a kiln? I'll make sure you have everything. I just need your help with my projects in return. Are you up for it?" Trisha seemed to look stupefied by his response, glancing over at Little Red, who just chuffed cheerfully before licking his paw and rubbing it in the ear. With a hard swallow, she looked back at Vidmori and nodded confidently. "Yes, anything to feel the heat of the forge. I'm happy to accept any commission that you put before me," she gushed with a grin. End of chapter. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons: Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Bushmaster177, Lord Azrekahl, AmbroseKTal, Quantum Wensday, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Blueberry Cat. Thank you very much for the support. It is super appreciated.